Hello, and welcome to the weekly SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group bi-weekly call. It is February 16th, 2017, flying through 2017 so far. So let's go ahead and get started. So just for folks that might be joining the call for the first time, or a quick refresher for folks that have been here before, this call is the special interest group for SharePoint Framework and JavaScript client-side development. 10 a.m. in some time zones. It's 10 a.m. in my time zone, so I'm not good enough to do the math and go through all the time zones. But we sit under the larger Patterns and Practices program, which now is part of SharePoint Engineering. So that's a very exciting development that happened, 6 or so months ago now. So that's been going on for a while. And that's given us a little bit tighter integration with the engineering teams. And so it's really helped bring kind of a better channel of the feedback from this group and the rest of Patterns and Practices back to engineering, and then getting some fresh information out of engineering to these calls, which is really fantastic. So we focus on two main areas in the calls. First is the SharePoint Framework, and the client-side patterns and things that go along with that. So that's getting really exciting. We're getting closer and closer every day to release. Release candidate 0 has been out for a little bit, and then we'll see. We're getting, like I said, closer and closer to the next step there. And then also as well, we talk about the JavaScript core component, which is something we've been developing for over a year now. A lot of folks are using that. That can be very helpful with SharePoint Framework and helpful in your standard development as well. So we try and talk about those two topics, as well as generally all the things client-side development, JavaScript development, those sorts of areas. If you have questions, we're always happy to help. And if you can't get your question in on these calls, please join us in the community, which is the first link there, the aka MS SPPNP-community, and that will take you to the Microsoft Tech community. And then the other site there is dev.office.com/SharePoint, which is your one-stop shop for all things SharePoint development. So if you've got questions about the new SharePoint framework, you've got questions about add-in development, and even questions about classic SharePoint server-side development, that's your place to go, and you've got links there out to the different topic areas and guidance in all those areas. So moving on, what are we going to talk about today? We've switched our agenda, or switched our ordering around just a little bit based on some of the feedback we were getting. So we're going to go through the core component update first, and then we'll get into the latest on the SharePoint framework with the standard time for discussion, but we felt this would be a little bit better. We wouldn't have to cut off the SharePoint framework discussion to move on to other topics. We could just kind of keep that rolling as long as folks had questions or topics they wanted to discuss. And then, of course, we have time at the end for just general open discussion. If you don't have a question that maybe is directly related to SharePoint Framework, or you think of something late, we should have plenty of time at the end. Unfortunately, this week we don't have any demos, so I would remind everybody we welcome your community demos. So if you've got something you want to show off, please let us know. We'd love to show it off on this call. Show the community what you've developed, and I think that really benefits everybody, because we get to learn from all the great things that folks have done. I know I've learned a lot from all the demos, seen different frameworks that I've not personally had a chance to use yet. So a lot of cool stuff. So please, if you're doing something fun, let us know. We'd love to give you a chance to show it off on this call to the community. So jumping into the JS core component updates. Again, as always, I want to say thank you to the contributors for the JS core component. Really appreciate everybody's work there, and not just the folks that are contributing, the folks that are also submitting issues and providing feedback on the library as well. So that really helps us grow and make things better in terms of everybody having a better experience. So keep that feedback coming, and keep those sorts of ideas coming as well. So David's got a question here. Can the demos include SharePoint-specific JavaScript coolness, but not directly tied to the SharePoint framework? Meaning like using JSLink to enhance experiences in classic mode. Sure, I don't have a problem with that. Obviously, we'd like it to be tied to SharePoint in some way, but if it's tied to SharePoint and doesn't necessarily use the SharePoint framework, I think that's definitely stuff that's worthwhile we can show off, and I think falls in the category of client-side development. So if you've got something like that, let us know. I think Like I said, our area is client-side development is sort of the big umbrella we sit under in this special interest group. So if you've got something that falls into that umbrella, I think it's definitely worthwhile to share that with the community. Again, it's all about learning and sharing and growing together. So I think that'd be great. So the updates on the JavaScript core component for 2.01, that has been released last Friday. Again, we're going to try and start aligning to the rest of the patterns and practices releases. So that's going to mean monthly releases, which are going to be a little bit smaller, but a little bit more frequent, which I think is going to be good. Sometimes we've waited a little bit of time to get a release out, and I think that'll be a good change. We've got updated guidance in that release for working with the Sharepoint Framework. You can see that in the release blog post as well as the developer guide in the wiki, but basically that involves passing now the this.context from inside your web part to the framework. And the reason for that, just real quickly, is that moving forward in terms of working with the Sharepoint Framework, there isn't going to be the idea of sort of a global page context. Your page context, or your web part context is very much going to be within the closure of that web part. So your web parts, I think I can say this, in the roadmap might not be loading necessarily exactly in the site. They could be loading through other means, but that context within the web part will always be correct for where that web part is supposed to be living. And so, meaning in the past we've relied on the underscore page context info global variable to help construct the URLs for our REST requests, and that's not going to be valid moving forward. So we added a fix in 2.01, or an enhancement really, so you just pass the context in and we'll take care of things from there. That's also, I just want to mention, if you've got your own libraries that is not the SPFx, but you've written your own thing and you're using the underscore page context info global variable, you'll want to look at updating your code as well to take in that context, or take in at least the information you need from that context, because the global variable will no longer necessarily either exist or be valid for where your web part may be loading in the future. So just a heads up there, and a change we made, so hopefully folks find that useful. And then also in that release, we did a rewrite of the request pipeline. That should be invisible to everybody, so unless you dig down into the code, you shouldn't really notice that. But we did that for two reasons. The first is we added a bunch of logging, so you can now, if you fire up the JS core logging, you can see all your requests and the data that's being passed through the pipeline now, in terms of was your request found in the cache and things like that. And you can monitor it, and I think we've got much better error reporting, things like that now, so I think that should help with development and troubleshooting. That's also mentioned in the blog post in a little bit more detail. And the other piece was we're moving towards, and it's not there yet, it's not in 2.01, but looking at the future of making that pipeline extensible. So allowing folks to plug in their own methods, say for caching, or their own methods, say even to send the request, and having options there, and the ability to insert stuff into that request pipeline, maybe to do data validation or some custom authentication, or you name it, but making that pipeline extensible. So that's kind of laying the groundwork for that future updates there. So I think that'll be great once we get that out. But that's sort of laying the groundwork, doing some of the dirty work to get us into position to make that an extensible pipeline for folks consuming the library. Another thing I wanted to mention, I'm going to start trying to use milestones as much as possible in the issues list. So want that to be again, trying to work on the transparency and communication out to folks so they have a little bit better heads up what's happening. So going to start trying to attach milestones to issues in terms of the release. And again, I think that's going to help with the monthly releases. We can tie milestones to each monthly release and even set some, maybe a few releases down the road. For example, that extensible pipeline is probably not going to be in the next release, but maybe in a couple releases. Brendan's got a good question. The global page context info variable, is it going away from SharePoint in general, or don't use it in SharePoint Framework web parts? So in classic pages and classic sites, nothing is changing. SP page context info variable will be there. Everything you've used in the past will be there. No changes in classic sites at all. This, what I said earlier, applies to SharePoint Framework web parts, and then the other pieces of SharePoint Framework that we'll be rolling out in the future are going to all be sort of wrapped in their own closure, which means you're going to need to rely on the this.context that will be provided to you. So classic sites, everything's fine, no changes to existing code, but for SharePoint Framework work, you can no longer count on that SP page context info variable. Even if it's defined, it might not necessarily be correct. Another thing I've been working on is Travis CI integration. The first thing I want to say is that's been really easy to set up. I've been really impressed with that. So that's pretty much done. I'm doing some final testing and polishing on that today. But there's two types of things that are going to run now. So when you submit a PR or a pull request, we're going to run the linting, we're going to build everything, and we're going to run the package command. And then if any of that fails, the Travis build for that pull request will be tagged as failing. So that'll help catch some of the linting things and stuff like that that have slipped in before. I'm as guilty of that as anyone, so that'll help all of us have a little bit cleaner pull requests. And then the other time it'll run is on merges, and I'll have a blog post on how to set this up for your forks, but when we do a merge, we're going to run the full test suite against SharePoint out of Travis, which is kind of really cool. So that'll run all our web tests as well and make sure our library is up to speed. And then Travis, the site is working. Travis CI, the site is working. I keep talking about it like it's a person, but it's a site. They're working on the ability to have scheduled tests, so cron jobs that will run daily, weekly, monthly. So once that's released, which it should be hopefully soon, we're going to schedule tests to run daily, which will be in line with what we're doing for the PowerShell and the CSOM libraries running the daily tests. I think we're doing them for PowerShell. I know we're doing them for CSOM. So we'll get a full test report pretty much every day against SharePoint to ensure nothing's changed in SharePoint that might affect our work, and that our work is still valid. So I think that'll be great as well. So really impressed by Travis, and I'll get a blog post out around my experience setting that up, as well as how to configure it for your own repo, because you'll be able to actually run our web tests against your SharePoint site when you do a push into your fork. So that'll be pretty cool as well. I think that'll be a neat enhancement. And I'll say honestly, had I known it was as easy to set up as it is, I would have done it sooner. And then we've got an upcoming webcast, which I need to still schedule with Vesa, getting that recorded, but talking about the JS core, how it fits in with SharePoint Framework, where we see it growing, and then where we see just sort of the general place of JS Core in the world of SharePoint development. So we get a lot of questions about that, and I think we've answered it a few times, and then from then to now, the answers changed as everything in life evolves a little bit. So I think that'll be a valuable webcast for folks that might still be wondering, how does this JS Core library fit in with SharePoint Framework or fit in with other SharePoint development you might be doing. So that's our updates for this call. Again, opportunities to contribute: demo SharePoint Framework web part on this call, demo the PNP JS library in a project on this call. That can be in conjunction or not with SharePoint Framework. As we talked about a little bit earlier, if you've got something just general client-side development and SharePoint related that maybe isn't SharePoint Framework and doesn't use the JavaScript core library, certainly would welcome those kind of things as well. Contribute on GitHub, and then provide feedback. So we get great feedback in the issues list, great feedback on Gitter. That's really great stuff. So again, thank you to everybody with the feedback, and look forward to getting some more demos on these calls. So really trying to encourage folks to demo your stuff on these calls. So now I'll turn things over to Vesa to give the updates around SharePoint Framework. And if anybody has any questions, happy to try and answer them as well in the IM window. Vesa, you all set?
unmute myself so I can actually keep on going. I just realized that I haven't actually updated all of the slides, but there are good slides in the end to talk about the roadmap of Sharepoint Framework, which probably is interesting for everybody. And we're going to actually release some roadmap details in the dev.ops.com relatively soon as well. But if you were here 2 weeks ago, I'm going to repeat some topics, and hopefully the audio quality is fine. I can see some challenges on the network, but please let me know if there's some audio issues. So first of all, there is again some level of a new guidance in the dev.ops.com/SharePoint. There's 2 new articles actually pending, which are under review, which will go live probably tomorrow there as well. The list of new articles is actually directly from 2 weeks ago because I forgot to update that list, so I do apologize on that one. But in general, in the dev.ops.com/SharePoint, if you go to SharePoint Framework, Web Parts and Guidance, that group of articles is expanding right now quite nicely. So we're getting contributions from the community, engineering is contributing and all of that. So that's really good. A reminder on our SharePoint Framework samples, so just letting everybody know, and reminder on that one, AKMS SPFx samples. You land into the PMP sample gallery, and we have like 30 individual samples for SharePoint Framework. There was an issue within the gallery search previously that you were unable to use the language as a filter. All of that has been now fixed. So you can actually use, if you're interested in React or Angular or Knockout as an example, you can use those as filter when you filter down on the samples which are available. Now, latest development in SPFx, this is pretty much exactly the same status as just a reminder from 2 weeks ago before I move into the actual new topic for this week. So written and video tutorials have been updated to release candidate 0 level. We will keep on updating these immediately when the GA goes live. We'll update them. We have done already a few updates on these videos because there was a small change related on React UI Fabric component usage, and it has been already updated on the articles. Some sample updates are still ongoing, unfortunately. There's so many samples in the gallery already that we're kind of running behind of the curve, trying to get them all on the release candidate level. Thanks everybody who've helped around that one, because a lot of the owners or the original submitters of the samples have already submitted a new version, which is working with release candidate, which is really good. Getting started with SharePoint Framework training package is getting closer. Actually, we do have that package already available. Let's talk about that one in a following slide. So I will at least share the preview URL of that package already, because we haven't actually done a big announcement on that one. I'm waiting for marketing sign off for certain things, but why not actually share you what we have available already today. And then more samples are actually coming up still on the SPFx web parts. And like mentioned, we are working on then updating all of these to the GA level whenever the GA is getting out. Now, I mentioned this getting started with SharePoint Framework. We've been mentioning this quite a few times. This has been quite a long-lasting process. Already right now, if you are interested about on getting access on this material, let me actually close that one. This is available in a GitHub. I'm going to paste in the URL on the IO window, where we have, let me see, 8 modules, and inside of individual modules there are smaller bits and pieces. So as an example, the SharePoint Framework Tools and Libraries is a sub-module or a section in the Getting Started module. And all of the material is already available, like mentioned, in a GitHub, but we will keep on, well, we will have a proper announcement and videos and everything else coming up slightly later. But already today, there's some labs, there's some videos, there's some labs, there's some presentations, and all of that available in the GitHub. This is going to be relocated slightly sooner or later, or it's going to be actually at least merged to the master branch of this GitHub, but why not actually share the URL right now with you guys if you're interested. Now, what I really wanted to concentrate on today is something related on the questions on the future of the SharePoint Framework. So everybody knows that we're heading to GA. GA is going to happen relatively soon for client-side web parts, but that's not the whole story. So we're looking into doing a lot of other stuff as well. And let me be 100% clear on these topics, which we're going to go through on the following slides as well. So this is what we're looking. We're not actually promising that this is going to happen. We're not promising, most likely it will happen. We're looking to make it happen, but we're not promising explicitly that we will deliver all of this. But we have a relatively long roadmap and backlog related on SharePoint Framework, and we are focusing on these after the SharePoint Framework client-side web parts are getting released, which will happen relatively soon, and then we'll start working on the additional set of things. So the number one thing, obviously, on-premises, we're looking into releasing SharePoint Framework in on-premises for SharePoint 2016. SharePoint 2016 during this calendar year. We've been telling that already in the past. We're also looking into improving the client-side web parts, so absolutely there will be improvements there, but there will be improvements in the adding model as well. So the adding model, you most likely can build modern add-ins using the SharePoint Framework in the future. And that's what we actually want to do. Now, when will that happen? That's a different discussion. Again, let me be super clear on that. We're looking into having code parts. Code parts essentially means pretty much the same idea as JS link or user custom actions, but in a slightly more structural way. And I'll come back on that one in a second. Versioning story is getting clarified. Application lifecycle management, I'll get back on that one in a second as well. Improvements on the developer experience, absolutely. And obviously this is a public webcast and this will be recorded, so this will be a YouTube video within 24 hours, so for answering Tim's information, this is absolutely public. We're looking into full-page apps as well, so making sure that you don't have to just think about a smaller web part, you can actually build a full-page app. Improvements on the webhooks, and then authentication and Microsoft Graph improvements as well. Now, like super clear, we are aware of the ask. We're looking into doing this. This is our big, massive backlog. So it will take a while for us to get there. Some of them theoretically might be that we'll never actually get there, unfortunately, because everything is related on the resources what we're having. But absolutely in our radar to get these things done. Now let's have a slightly more detailed look on the things. So on-premises, sorry, did I jump one slide? Yes, I did. So on-premises, the SharePoint Framework is planned to be shipped as part of the feature pack to on-premises, so for SharePoint 2016. The target is to have a full feature fidelity, but with a different pace. In SharePoint Online, we can publish updates on the backend quite fast and also on the packages. For on-premises, the story is slightly different. But really the key point is that we would have a common development platform across on-premises and cloud. So it doesn't matter if you're doing adding model development or SharePoint Framework development, you would be able to take advantage of exactly the same development story in both sides. Objective is no doubt to leverage the modern toolchain and open source on a legacy, in quotes, legacy environment, because I wouldn't actually consider SharePoint 2016 as legacy environment as such, but then again, it slightly depends on what do we mean with legacy. And the idea is that if you start moving into or start using SharePoint Framework in SharePoint 2016, you get a head start if your deployment is going to move to SharePoint Online at some point. So it's no doubt a good practice actually to do the stuff in a way that it's already aligned within the cloud deployment. And please do remember mute yourself in this call, so I can hear some background noise on the background. Like mentioned, we're targeting SharePoint 2016 during the calendar year 2017. I'm going to mute some people here. Sorry for that. So we're avoiding the background noise as well. Now, the other stuff. So let's move on the list of topics. Web parts, add-ins, and the future. So we want to make sure that we are supporting more complex scenarios and interactions with web parts. So web part to web part communications is a classic request, and absolutely we know that request. We want to address that. JavaScript framework isolation. So how do we make sure that the JavaScript frameworks and styles do not collide on the pages if there's multiple different web parts which are using different frameworks and all of that? Absolutely aware of that, and we're looking into addressing that. We're also looking into to address the citizen developer model, essentially means the classic model where, hey, I'm not a Visual Studio guy, I'm not a JavaScript developer guy, but I want to actually embed a small JavaScript widget on my page as easy as possible, or to my field as a JS link, without the fact that I need to open Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio to make that happen. So we do have some plans on that one. I cannot disclose all of those plans at this point, but just letting you know that absolutely aware of the ask, and we want to make sure that that ask is being addressed in the future as well, if we can address that. But we're looking into that one as well. Bringing add-in model to the modern world. So essentially, we want to make sure that the existing add-in model, where people have made a lot of investments from a implementation perspective, they would play nicer with the new UX as well. They would have to be responsive, and you would be able to build SharePoint add-ins using the SharePoint framework as well. And the classic scenario also on Azure AD versus ACS. We've been kind of actually back in 2 years ago, I actually announced in the build that we're addressing this already 2 years ago, and we haven't done that. So we're looking into doing that one as well. Now, moving on things, and I do know that there's a lot of questions probably on the Iron window, but I want to go through these, and then we can actually open up the questions. So let's go through the topics, and then we can concentrate on the Q&A section. Code. Type an arbitrary code, and again, future stuff, which is in our backlog. So we're looking into addressing JS link address in the field, row, and in the view level. The whole point is that this is a relatively common scenario, how people are customizing SharePoint Online or SharePoint 2016 or on premises currently. We know that. We want to address that. We don't want to have it in the way like it is right now. Essentially, majority of the user custom actions or JS link customizations work in a way that, hey, you'll just hook in a JavaScript on the page, which is great and is flexible, and we do show how to make that happen in PnP. The challenge, however, is that when we change the page DOM structure, those customizations fail. So in the future, what we want to do is that we want to give you a guarantee related on areas and sections on the pages. As long as you hit certain ID, it will be guaranteed to be on the page. Or as long as you do certain modifications, which we tell you what you can do and how do you hook in your JavaScript on those things, we will guarantee that that functionality will be there, regardless if we change the whole UI at some point. And that's really the advantage and why we want to invest on building this in SharePoint Framework for the modern sites and the classic sites as well. So guarantee that your customizations do not break whenever we modify the pages, like they might do right now. But the SharePoint Framework 1.0, that is really for client-side webpoints. So all of these additional things are roadmap, and we keep on then releasing them gradually after the 1.0 comes out with the client-side web parts. Then first, probably it will be the JS link capability, then later on user custom action scenarios and more additional flexibility on that one as well. Am I missing something from bullet points? Probably not. Nothing special, and you can ask a question after I go through a few more slides on what are we planning to do. Application lifecycle management. What are we planning to do on that side? So this is a relatively kind of a hard topic. It means different things for different people. So it's not a specific term as such. But what we want to make sure is that we make significant improvements on this side as well. One of the classic scenarios is that, hey, I want to deploy my add-in or client-side web part to be available in a tenant using automatic APIs. Yes, we're looking into doing that. So ALM REST APIs for deploying packages, activating an app, deleting an app, upgrading an app. And that's essentially for SharePoint Framework packages or then for add-ins as well. So that would be then available at some points whenever we get there to be available. Just looking to Trist. CDN hosting for the code. So obviously, we already right now we have an Office 365 public CDN as one of the options for CDNs. That's in the developer preview. That's going to go GA quite soon. We're looking into getting that one natively supported as well, and having more support on that one, so you can more easily in your SharePoint Framework packages define how the files are getting shared and distributed using your Office 365 public or private CDN, which will be available quite soon as well. That's being done by slightly different people than the SharePoint Framework, so there's the timing challenges and making sure that every feature is working properly, but it looks super, super promising at this point, and already the developer preview is super, super flexible. Good developer experience, the future on that one, obviously Workbench 2.0. So we're looking into having a development story beyond the web parts, because we're looking into having the code parts, aka user custom actions, apps and pages and all of that available. We need to enhance the existing Workbench to a new version as well. And then having something simple like connect to SharePoint, so you would be able to configure in your solution, what is my tenant, and then in the local Workbench, just click a button and you'll be flipped to the SharePoint Online. And in a SharePoint Online, you can easily flip back on the local Workbench, so you don't have to remember those URLs. Well, that's a simple fix. Having the support for add-ins and code parts or full-page apps it's much more complicated fix as well. Toolchain components and additional Yeoman templates. So toolchain components, more flexibility on what can you do whenever we actually build the tooling or the apps? So what's going to happen? You can do more flexibly gulp tasks or whatever. And then also additional Yeoman templates. So right now, by default, in the SharePoint Framework Yeoman templates, we have the No library, React library, and the Knockout library templates available, which, by the way, does not mean that you wouldn't be able to use any other libraries. They're just a predefined project templates. So, but we're looking into having additional project templates then available in the Yeoman by default as well. Sorry. And I think that's the final slide on this one. Then we can open up this one for Q&A, because probably missed quite a few questions. So full-page apps is one thing. We kind of mentioned this. We've been mentioning this back in Atlanta in September as well. It is still in our roadmap. And the whole idea is that you would be able to have a full-page app rather than one single client-side web part. Which is understandable ask, and we have some designs on this one as well, and we've been playing around with the concepts inside of the engineering as well. So the ask, absolutely understandable, but it's in the queue of getting moving whenever we get there. And would ask people to mute themselves. There we go. So there's no background noise. Good. So before we actually close up, and I know that there's a lot of questions, I'll get back on the questions in a second. One thing what I wanted to do, so that was kind of what we want to do in the future. And most likely the following slide is still intact in the slide deck, which is good. So I know that you have a lot of questions on the future roadmap of SharePoint Framework, but if we concentrate right now still on the version 1.0, and I've been asking this in every single special interest group call since November. The GA of client-side web parts is coming pretty soon. What do you guys need? And if the answer is, well, I don't know, maybe just getting the documentation up to date, that's an awesome answer as well. More guidance, more samples, what kind of documentation is really the question. And we don't have to spend too much time on this one, but it's kind of an interesting topic, because obviously we want to address whatever might be blocking you to adapt SharePoint Framework. Samples at least from Ralph and Kiran. We have 35 samples in the sample gallery, around 35 samples in SharePoint Framework already, which is good. Make sure that all the samples are up to date. Yeah, I'll wait you there, Nigel. And that's no doubt the plan as well. Docs and guidance. Now, on the docs and guidance, what docs and what guidance is really the key. On David's point, the info how JS-Link user custom actions are going to be updated is very helpful. We don't have that info yet, so that's in the backlog, like mentioned. That's in our roadmap. And yes, whenever we are planning to release that one, the JS-Link and user custom actions, yes, we'll address that. Right now, the GA is for client-side web parts, and that's going to happen relatively soon. Perhaps a sample with native JavaScript, if not already there. I think already have Angular. We do have native samples without any framework, also for CRUD operations. More REST examples, yes, and that's a fair point. We've been trying to address the REST API documentation internally. We are, I wouldn't say that we are blocked, but we're trying to address that still as much as possible, because the existing REST API documentation is pretty much horrible, and we do get that, and we're trying to get that unblocked. Unit testing, that's an interesting, good point as well. Yes. Oh, and on the David's points. Good. Yeah, the whole point of showing actually our roadmap and kind of a slightly covering through what we're planning to do in the future, without timelines and schedule commitments, is really to let everybody know that yes, we are aware of the asks, we are aware of the need, and we do know that people do these customizations. So it's all in on backlog. It's just a matter of getting it done. Samples, which is a fair comment. We'll get more samples in Angular 2 first-class support, as that is what all of my customers are moving towards. The challenge, Mike, on the Angular 2 is actually, the problem is not on the Sharepoint framework. The problem is actually on the Angular 2 side, and we are working together with Google on addressing that. Because Angular 2 assumes to be a single-page app. Well, there are ways to work around on that one, but that's really the challenge. Angular assumes to be a single-page application, and therefore we need to have some modification on the Angular side. And we are actually working with Google on that, which sounds super weird. Microsoft engineering working with Google to address something together, but it's the new world. Samples with some web parts and some shared code between them, kind of a full solution, absolutely. That's a good one, Luis. Thank you. Unit testing +1. Is there a sample out around localization? We do have a guidance on the localizations, or a tutorial, guidance article on the localization, but there isn't, I'm not sure if we do have an explicit sample on that one. Redux and Webpack 2. Mentioned Redux is actually covered in one of the samples, which is fine. Unit testing, ALM guidance, public roadmap with some ranking. The public roadmap is coming. The public roadmap will be pretty much exactly what we went through today, with some level of ranking is fair. Which of these will be coming first, and then what next? Yes, Angular assumes it's a single instance. That's what it actually means. Yes, indeed. But it kind of assumes it's a single-page application where it's hosted. So it's not hosted in the page where you might have 25 other client-side web parts, some of them using Angular 1.x, some of them Angular 2, some of them using something else. So it's a slightly challenging scenario. Motivational videos to learn TypeScript. Yes, all with you there. Angular 2 comment as well. ALM guidance should be sooner, so we're going to organize at least before hitting up with new stuff. Yes, the initial ALM guidance for the new stuff absolutely have to be there. Absolutely agree on that. And cool. Services built using Angular 2. So right now, yes. So it again means what do we mean with services in this context? But Angular 2 support in general and the guidance on that one is fair. Now, that's have all the typings been upgraded to SPFx to use typings? They have. So and we. By default, when you provision a default library, you get actually still typings folder, but it has like 2 files, and all of that is going to be obviously cleared and gone when we get to the GA. So it will be absolutely in typings, and the release candidate one is already using at typings properly, which is a good thing. Now, I probably missed quite a few questions above when I was quickly running through the list of things. I'm going to quickly go back maybe on there, unless we have some other things. Ralph has some good ideas on the iron window. That's always good. I'm not sure if I like Pina Colada. I mean, first I support as an in-human template generator, and where we add as an SPFx metadata to the module and component compiled to the mobile performance. Angular is going to dominate the enterprise. Yep, that's a fair point. We'll see which of the libraries will win. Absolutely. So Angular 2 might be, no doubt, one of the big winners. Cute. Use a voice to prioritize new features. That's actually a fair point as well. Maybe we should have some sort of a way of getting input from a ranking perspective, no doubt. And Mike is saying that it's not going to be a competition. That's good. I don't have statistics or insights, and I know that across the world visibility on the metrics of Angular 2. If somebody has, that's fine. We'll see. So who knows where we are in 3 years? It might be a completely new library which will overcome everything else. So React is going to be, I prefer React. Public input ranking feature focus, yes, on that one. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go slightly back on the up of the things because I don't have anything else to cover. I know that I went through super. These are old slides, and those are not actually cleaned from the deck. We went super fast on the roadmap slides, and if there's any questions related on those, feel free to ask. But like mentioned, I want to be super clear. The whole point of going through those slides in this presentation is to let everybody know that we are absolutely aware of the requirements for user custom action, as an example, or the scenarios which typically are addressed using the user custom actions or the JS link. And we want to address those scenarios. In general, we're more interested on why did you need to use them, rather than I want to attach whatever JavaScript on my page. Cool. You want to attach the JavaScript on your page for what reason? That's what we want to know. And then we can unblock those scenarios in a more flexible way. Just going to quickly go back up if there is any comments related on the stuff which I went through, or you can actually add the question again on the iron window. If there isn't, I would like to see full-page apps on the top of the list. That's a fair comment as well. Can you share the list of web parts that Microsoft will be providing? Unfortunately, no, I can't. And that's a moving target as well. And obviously, we'll provide some web parts first and then additional web parts. And our web part roadmap or backlog is like hundreds of web parts. Now, which of them we will actually deliver? That's a different discussion. Is there a skeleton web part available which we can add our functionality? Yes. Whenever you provision, whenever you run the Yeoman template, that's essentially the skeleton what we have right now. Cool. I'm going to scroll back down and see if I'm actually missing any points. Can you provide more insights about custom actions navigation? So. And just to be clear, the slide deck will be shared in the docs.com/officedev pretty soon as well, as together with whenever the video goes live. So let's actually start with that one. So all of the PMP slides typically are shared using our docs.com address. So you can actually come in here. There's 200 slide decks, a lot of slides on different topics, and this 6 slides will be shared there as well. We'll do some cleaning on the deck because there was some leftovers from the previous session. Now, on the other topics, so Tim is saying, can you provide any more insights about the user custom navigation? Now, like mentioned, what we want to do in the future, so let's go one step back. The user custom actions, awesome scenario, and you can actually do whatever you like in a SharePoint on premises or SharePoint online by attaching your JavaScript onto the page, and then you go to the DOM level of the page and you start doing modification. You can inject custom controls. You can do a lot of that stuff. We started showing this already back in 2013. In the PMP guidance, so it's a relatively classic way of customizing SharePoint. The challenge of doing that is that you have a dependency on the page DOM structure. So, as an example, if we would allow user custom actions in modern SharePoint sites today in SharePoint Online, which we don't do, that's actually right now blocked. Any existing user custom JavaScript which you would have towards classic SharePoint site would not work because you would have a dependency on the DOM structure, and the DOM structure is completely different. So the challenge what we want to address in the future related on the JavaScript customizations, related on user custom action or the modern user custom action implementation is that we will guarantee certain sections in the sites or in the pages or in the layout, which will be there. And then you can modify those sections. You can imagine that in a simplistic scenario, and this is oversimplifying everything, we will give you unique IDs of certain sections in a page, and we'll say that ID will be always on a page. We'll guarantee that the ID is on the page. We'll guarantee that that is called the navigation, and we'll guarantee that you're able to add additional stuff on that ID. Now, that would be a relatively simplistic way of doing customization. So what we want to do with SharePoint Framework is that we want to give you additional benefits. So yes, with an ID on a div ID on a page, you can actually inject navigation elements to a certain section of a page. But wouldn't it make actually more sense that we would give you a framework where you'll add new where you can actually easily manage what do you want to have on the navigation, rather than building the navigation HTML DOM structure within your code. You would be using the TypeScript, you would be using SharePoint Framework to actually build the navigation section, and you're able to extend that based on your customizations. And that's what we want to do with the future with header and footer and navigations and whatever. So give you additional benefits through the SharePoint Framework, and then give you easy way of attaching those customizations on the pages. And that's why we're not planning to just open up, hey, inject whatever JavaScript on the modern pages, whatever you like, because whenever we will change the layout, your customizations won't work, and therefore somebody's going to do an escalation, and then somebody's going to be mad, and that's not a good way of doing that. Let's rather give a structural way of injecting, not injecting. Let's give a structural way of extending the UI using a standardized contract between the developers and Microsoft. Hopefully that it makes some level of a sense. Semi-related, but back on the PMP, if you say the template for provisioning, can you change the language provisioning time? Well, that's more on the provisioning template. Provisioning template side, you can absolutely. Well, PMP provisioning engine works in a way that you are applying customizations and configuration. You will still need to provision the site. You can provision the site using one API call, and during that API call, you can change whatever language you actually want to use. Love that approach. Sounds great. Exactly. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks. Good. My explanation hopefully did seem to have made sense for the future. And trust me, everybody in engineering, they understand. We do know that you would like to have all of these goodies, what we're looking for, today available right now. Trust me, I would love to have them available as well. But everything takes time. The challenge of us releasing something for you guys is that we need to actually support that. If we release something today, for example, the client-side web parts will go live relatively soon. Well, not today, but relatively soon. We will need to support that. We will need to have a backward compatibility for the APIs. We cannot go and say, oopsie, we cannot do a break and change for your APIs, because whatever client-side web parts were developed, those would all get broken. So the reason why it takes slightly longer and it takes time for us to do this, let's say, long-term implementations is that we really, really want to make sure that we do minimize the need for any breaking changes in the future. Well, we cannot actually do those. And we want to make sure that you're still able to do whatever is needed to be done in the SharePoint in the future as well. That's why it actually takes time. Rolf has a comment. It's okay, take your time to get it right. At least in my case, we're talking clients into letting us use this stuff, which is 6 months. Yeah. Can we multi-thread the BMP provisioning? I'm asking because we need to provision the subsites synchronously, but it's taking 5 to 10 minutes to provision. Answer is actually yes. And good. Dean is agreeing with Croft. Yeah. And it would be, like mentioned, it would be great to have all of this ready already. But we're in a different world. And one thing what we need to learn as a SharePoint people, I used to be a field person in SharePoint as well. I'm a ex-consultant from MCS and all of that. So the world is changing. We're releasing new capabilities in a monthly basis, or there's a new release of SharePoint Online in every single week, which is actually super crazy, considering the fact that in the past we were releasing a new SharePoint version every 3 years. When we did the every 3 years, we in engineering actually had a lot of time to polish and make sure that the APIs are valid and everything is up to date. Now that we are in this new world with SharePoint Online, we want to push you guys additional goodies faster than that. And they will be much faster than in 2 to 3 years, like you've seen. So things are rolling out all the time in SharePoint Online. Good. One example using Azure Functions would be useful, and that's related on the sample discussion. Azure Functions, let's see. We do have examples using Azure Functions. We do have, for example, for the webhook handling, we do have other samples in the BMP in general. The Azure Functions doesn't work that well with SharePoint Framework specifically, because SharePoint Framework is UI layer. And right now, currently, you cannot call a Azure secured assets from a client-side web part without authentication requirements, which we are looking into addressing as well. So it's a slightly different topic from that perspective. Good. Tim, I understand your concerns. We are asking for both new stuff and all the time, but also asking it to be stable and be supported in the long term. I appreciate your prudence in rolling things out, even though as a developer, I want it all. Yeah, I know that. Wouldn't it make sense to convert the partner back to use Azure Functions? Oh, yeah, that's a fair point. We could, so on that particular topic, so the PnP partner back is showing kind of a classic PnP, well, customization story around managed code and user site provisioning and everything else. One of the things what it's using is an Azure web job for the backend processing, and we could no doubt switch that Azure web job to be an Azure function. So that, or do an alternative site implementation. So you could choose if you want to do an Azure function or if you want to do an Azure web job. That would be actually a really nice implementation as well, so that you can compare the costs and the implementation and everything else. What does it actually mean? Azure Functions is the cool new dude in the block. Everybody wants to play with Azure Functions, so kind of makes sense. But to be fair, it's the same objective. You put a request in Azure Storage Queue, and then you fire either Azure Web Job or an Azure function. Then the Azure function is doing something towards SharePoint Online. So the scenario itself is exactly the same. Which element in the Azure is doing that, that's the difference. But Azure Functioning is still cheaper, so it would probably make sense to have that kind of a sample. Good. Any other questions on SharePoint Framework? Feature, questions, comments, concerns? I don't want to use it because of, let us know. If there's any concerns, if there's any doubts, we do understand that it takes a while to learn the new ways of doing development, learning the TypeScript and everything else, and that challenge is no doubt there. But if there are specific requirements and requests towards us, we are trying to help on those as well. App Store and the SharePoint Framework. We don't have a specific story on that one right now because SharePoint Framework client-side web parts are always running in the context of the page. So in quotes, they are full trust customizations. We are looking into on the story on that one. So it is in our backlog. There is an assigned person who is looking into that, but we can't actually share any details on that one right now. Is there a link to the intranet shown Tuesday? Yes. So there is. That's the intranet which was shown, and the video on that one is obviously in the YouTube as well. So I'm gonna just quickly copy that video link where we actually have it as well. Good. We have 4 minutes until we're hitting the hour, but if there isn't any massive additional questions or suggestions or comments, we can absolutely close up for today. We didn't have any live demos today, but I was hoping, and we were hoping together with Patrick, that having some visibility for the additional things, what are we considering for the future, will be highly beneficial for you people. And obviously the video is recorded. This will go live to the PMP YouTube channel within 24 hours, typically. It really depends on Patrick not forgetting to publish the video. Patrick, it's on you. So hopefully by tomorrow.
Well delegated. Well delegated.
Yeah. Thank you. But we'll get the video out there hopefully by tomorrow morning PST. We'll see. It really depends on when Patrick has had time to process the video, because it takes a while to actually get it processed. But I think it's time to close up. We're hitting the hour quite soon. There are some comments. I can actually address this in a second. You asked about JS link-wise scenarios. Is there something to provide those to you? So we don't specifically, probably the easiest way to do that is to have just open discussion in our community channel. So I'm going to actually add the community channel URL in the window. Appreciate the look of future SPFx and a good amount of the questions. Thank you. One more thing, perhaps show how to construct an SPFx web part. So for that one, if you're looking in the guidance on the web parts, or I would actually have a look on our tutorials, because these are showing how to construct an SPFx web part. So step by step, including also a video on how to set up your development environment. But I think that's it. We're hitting the hour. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your suggestions. We absolutely are interested of your feedback, so we're able to address your concerns. Thank you, Patrick, for hosting. Next meeting is on 2nd of March. Patrick, any last words?
Nope. Thanks, everybody. Do please, if you've got some ideas for demos, let us know. Really want to kind of push those out from the community. And we'll see you guys March 2nd. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.